Hello students, welcome to Sreenath Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss the 5th chapter, which is Separation of Substances from 6th class CBSE Science. So, my name is Karthik Nunna. We are creating videos on all chapters and all subjects from class 6 to class 12. So, please do subscribe our channel. Also, like and share our videos, students. So, without wasting time, we are going to start this session. So, our present chapter name is Separation of Substances. Okay students, how we will separate different substances? Why we need to separate different substances? Does we really need to separate substances? So at the first, in the morning, what we will do after taking tiffin, we will some may prefer coffee or some may prefer tea, like that. For example, take the example of tea. If you want to drink tea, how your mother will prepare tea? So she will prepare the tea. After that, before pouring the tea into the cup, she will use a strainer. Why she use a strainer? Because she wants to separate the tea leaves or any extra thing in the tea, and she want a pure only liquid form tea. That's why to separate the tea leaves, she uses strainer. So finally we concluded that we need to separate substances in our day-to-day life. Here we are separating the tea from tea leaves using strainer. And one more thing, students, suppose if you have to eat in the salted dal or poha, what you will do? If it contains chilies, what will you do? Do you eat the chilies also? No, we will separate the chilies and we will eat the remaining thing. No. So in here also we have to separate some mixtures. Here also we have to separate some things. So we need to separate different substances or different materials. Okay students, so suppose I have given you a basket. In this basket there are mangoes and there are apples and there are mangoes. Okay students, I asked you to separate the mangoes from the apples. How you will do? At first you will take another basket or anything and you will pick up the mangoes from it and you place the mangoes in it, and you say, I have separated, sir. So there are mangoes, I have separated from the apples. So the remaining things in the basket are apples and the remaining things you have picked up the mangoes. So in this way you will separate the food materials or you will separate the substances. Okay students, suppose in the case of mangoes and apples, the mangoes are considerable change. They are hand picked. Suppose if the mangoes and apples are having some size, that's why you can easily pick them. Suppose if the substances mixed are having very small size, how you will pick up? So that is a doubt, no students, but after completing this session you will be able to clear that doubt students. So finally, one more thing you have to remember, or one thing you have to just remember, is we need to separate substances. We in our day-to-day life we will always use the different methods to separate different substances, students. Okay, that is the conclusion. So here is the separation process, and here are the purpose for which we are separating, and here what we will do with the separated components. So it is a table, students. We have to match up all these things, students. Okay, suppose separate stones from rice. So if you want to separate stones from rice, for what purpose you are separating? So out of these three things we have to select one, and what you will do with the separated particles? Out of these three things you have to match. It is like a matching, students. Okay, next thing. So the substances which we are separating may be in the form of solid, liquid or gas, students. Okay, they have any form. And one more thing is that the substances which we have to separate may have particles of different sizes. They may have different sizes and they may be in different phases, like they may be in solid or liquid or in gas, students. Okay, so at first we are going to start this with called methods of separation. So what are the different methods of separation, students? So finally, what is our conclusion is we have to separate different food materials or different substances, not only food materials, whatever the materials it may be, whatever the substances it may be in our life. Sometimes we have to separate some substances, and here we are going to discuss the what are the methods of separation. So the method is here, it is that hand picking. Hand picking is one of the method used to separate substances, students. Suppose your mother wants to cook rice, what she will do? At first she will take the rice into a plate, and she searches for stones or husk if anything is there, and she will carefully remove the stones or the husk or the strains or the stalks in that rice. After removing all those stones, then she will go for cooking the rice. So this method of separating the impurities or the separating substances is called as hand picking. By using our hands, we are just picking. So previously also I have told you one example. If I given you a basket and there are apples and mangoes, how you will separate them? Just you will pick up the mangoes or the apples, whatever it may be, and we will place it on the another basket. So that process is also called as hand picking. So hand picking is a process in which we will separate the materials using our hand. Okay, students, what are the examples? That is the stones in a rice and picking up mangoes or apples in a basket, students. Okay, this is the situation. We call that as hand picking. So this method of hand picking can be used for separating slightly larger sized impurities, students. Okay, like the pieces of dirt, stone and husk from wheat, rice or pulses. So if the impurities or if the separating substances are having considerable size, larger size, then we can use this process, students. Okay, otherwise we don't prefer this process, students. So next process is threshing. Do you know the process of threshing, students? So after 5 minutes you are going to know what is the process of threshing, students. So basically what happens, students, we have previously discussed about hand picking. We will separate using our hand. Okay, so students, first what we have done, we have discussed that we will separate the stones or the husk or the stalks from the rice. Okay, for that we use hand picking method. Suppose if you want to cook rice, first we have to separate the stones from the rice, students. So if you want to cook rice or if you want to eat rice, first thing is you need rice. Okay, students, where will you get rice? You will buy those rice from shops. Where the shops will get the rice? They are farmed by farmers. Okay, students, farmers in the fields, they are grown, students. Okay, in the fields, how they are grown? They are wheat or rice, whatever it may be. There are stalks. To that stalks, what happened? Grains are there. Okay, students, how the farmers will separate the seeds or the grains, whatever we call maybe, from the stalks? How? The process they used is called threshing. So does they use the hand picking method? No, not at all. Why? Why? Because means a single stalk may have lots of grains or lots of seeds, whatever we call it as. So if you want to do the task by hand picking, it is very difficult. It takes a lot of time. So that's why they use the method of threshing. How they will do this? So first they will take the stalks and they will beat the stalks they will beat the stalks to free the grains from it. Okay, students, like that. There is a stone and they will take the stalks and they will beat the stalks with the ground or anything, so that what happened, the grains attached to the stalks will be released, so that they will capture all the grains, students. So this method is called as threshing, students. Okay, next thing. So we have discussed the hand picking method and we have discussed the threshing method, and next method is called as winnowing, students. So this is also one of the separating method. Okay, students. So if the particles, or if the not particles, if the substances are having considerable size, we use hand picking. If the substances are having small size and we have to separate more number of things, we use threshing. Next thing is winnowing. So when did we use this method? Suppose, students, if there is a mixture of dry sand plus sawdust, there is a dry sand and sawdust in a beaker or in a container. So how you will separate the dry sand and sawdust, students? So it is very tough task if you do it by hand picking. So it is very time taking and very boring and very time taking and a tough task. If you want to do it by threshing, there are no stalks to beaten the stalks to get released, different things. So it is also not the good process. But what you will do, you will do the winnowing process, students. So why we will prefer this task, students? This dry sand have heavier, it is having some weight. Here this sawdust have lighter, its weight is small. So by differentiating the weight, there is a weight difference. No, that's why we will do this task, students. Okay, if you want to use the method of winnowing, the substances which you want to separate must have the weight difference. Some the one substance may be heavier and another substance may be lighter, then only we can separate both the things, students. Okay, at first what you will do is, you will take these into a flat plate like this, students, and you will stand up on at some height and you will drop those mixture from certain height. So winnowing means whenever there is wind, this process will works good, or artificially you can blow the air with using some of the things. So by winnowing by wind or by blowing the wind, you can use this process. So how it will work, students? So basically from here, what happening, from here the particles are coming down. So basically the dry sand, it is having weight, that's why when you drop it will comes to ground directly. But the sawdust or the dry leaves, what are the materials which are having lighter weight, they are having lighter weight. Because of the wind, they will go away and they will lay on the ground at some other distance, that is husk or the sawdust or whatever it may be. Okay, students, so basically like that we can separate. So here what is the method is, here they are separating the grains of the rice or wheat from the husk, students. So after threshing, what they will do, they will collect all the grains, students. In those grains, what happens, there will be lot of husks and lot of husks like that, no, students. So to separate those husks from the grains, they will use the winnowing method, students. So the husk will go away and lay on some other place, and the sawdust and the dry sand or the grains will directly lay down on the floor, students. In this way they will separate, students. Okay, that is the thing, that is the process of winnowing, students. And the husk particles are carried away by the wind, students. Okay, that is the thing. The next process is what, students? The next process is sieving. So have you listened this word, sieving? So does we use sieving in our daily life? Yes. So previously we have discussed when our mother or your mother wishes to cook rice, whether your mother cook rice, what she will do, they will separate the stones, that is the hand picking method. And how they are getting the rice means, they are getting from the fields, they are threshed. After threshing the process, their winnowing process is done. After that you will get the rice. Out of it also there are some stones, you will use the hand picking method. Now suppose your mother wants to make a dish using a flour. using a floor. So what she will do, so at first she will take the floor and she will use a siever to separate any particles or any impurities in the, or any husk or any bun or any stalks or whatever the impurities in the floor. So she wants to purify the floor, students. So for that reason, what she will do, she will take sieve. Okay, students. So she is like that, students. So by seeing this image, I think you have got an idea. So she will pour the floor in this siever. So what this sieve will do, so it will allows the fine very fine particles of floor to drop down, and it will abstract or it will stops the stones or the impurities or the husks or whatever it may be, which are having some bigger size than the floor. It will allows only the very fine particles like floor. All the remaining things will be locked up here by using a sieve. So in this process, she can separate the floor and the other impurities, students. Okay, that is the process. So you may this is the process of sieving, students. So we also use the process of sieving in the construction works also, students, in the case of construction works. So here there is an example for it. So in the construction area, what they will do, so if in the construction we will use sand, cement and some stones, now students. So in the concrete, for the concrete purpose, so if you want to do the plastering like that, we will take the sand. So we have to purify the sand must be very it must have very fine particles, students. Okay, like that. So if there are having any stones like that, big stones in the sand, we will remove them. In which process we will remove them? We will remove them using sieving process. We will use a large siever like this. Okay, so what they will do, you will pour the sand in it, and what happens, the sand will goes down. The sand will goes down and the stones in it is locked up here. In this way, you will separate the stones from the sand. Okay, students, this is the case. So in this way, we will separate the stones and the floor. Okay, students, this is the process of sieving. So these are the different processes, students. Beginning, that is hand picking is one of the process, threshing is the another process, winnowing is the another process, sieving is the another process. Here there comes up again a mixture of three continuous processes, students. That is sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Okay, students, these are also three different processes, students. Suppose if you want to drink water, if the water you are getting is not pure, or take a water in a glass and pour some mud onto it, or pour some sand into it. So now you have to drink the water. So our task is to drink water, and we don't wish to drink the sand particles. We only want the pure water, liquid water. So how you will get the pure water? Of course, previously you are having the pure water, but we made it impure by making some sand in it. How you will separate the sand and the water? So for that, students, what you will do is, first it is a beaker, and there is a sand and there is a water. So how you will do this task? So first you have to just place it for some time. Place it for some time left like that. So after some time, what happened? The sand particles will go down and the water will be there. So the sand particles which are having the weight, just some weight, they will be goes down and settled at the bottom. The process of that settlement is called sedimentation, students. Sedimentation. So when the heavier component in a mixture settles after water is added to it, the process is called sedimentation, students. We call that process sedimentation. So if you want to cook rice also, or the pulses also, before it also you will do this process. What you will do, we will wash the rice or the pulses with water. For what purpose we will do it? So we want to separate the impurities or the husk, or what are the impurities they are attached to the rice, or like that. For that you will make it mixed with water, and what happened, the heavier particles, the heavier components in the mixture will goes down and settle there. That process is called as sedimentation. Okay students, the heavier components in the mixture will go down and settle down, students. So coming back to the same old example, that is what, sand plus water. Here sand is settled down, so this is the called as sedimentation. So now we want to take only water out of the beaker. What we will do? So we will use another beaker, students. The process is like that. Okay students, it is the soil plus water or sand plus water, whatever it may be. So after some time, what happens, because of the process of sedimentation, the soil or the sand, whatever it may be, it will settle down in the bottom. So after that we want to take only water. So for that you have to take this glass and you have to tilt it without disturbing this sand or the soil. Don't shake while doing this process. Carefully just tilt smallly like this, and carefully see that the water, only water have to be come out of this beaker, students, or the glass, students, like that. So this process we call it as decantation. What it is? Decantation. Okay students, so even though after doing this decantation, so the sedimented sand or soil, whatever it may be, it is on the bottom. After decantation also there are some impurities. So further, how to purify it, how to separate the remaining sand particles or the soil in the water? So that will be done with filtration. So can you remember the process called while making the tea, what you will do? We will use a strainer to separate the tea leaves. That strainer is called as the filter. We use the filter so that we can separate it. Like that we have to use some filters. So filtration process. So for that we will use some filter papers. So for that we will use cloth, students. If we may use the strainer for tea leaves, like that. If the impurities which we have to separate is much smaller than the sizes of tea leaves or the stones, we can't by using the strainer. If you can't do this task, we will use cloth. So cloth have very small pores, so that it will block the impurities. Even though if the cloth can't purify it, can't block the impurities, you may use filter paper. Filter paper have much more small paper, so small holes, so that it can block them. In this process we will do this, students. Okay, filter paper is this. You will take the filter paper and you will make like a funnel, and you place it on like this, and you will pour the water. So this is the process of filter paper and the filtration, students. So by using this method, we can say this is the called filtration method and decantation method and sedimentation method, students. Okay. And fruit and vegetable juices are usually filtered before drinking to separate the seeds and solid particles or pulp. So if you want to drink the fruit juices or the vegetable juices, what you will do after making the juice in a mixer, before drinking it, we will use strainer or the filters, so to separate the seeds and solid particles or the pulp, students. Okay, that process is called as filtration, and for that filtration process with different things, students. And the method of preparation is filtration is also used in the process of preparing cottage cheese paneer in our home. So if you want to prepare the paneer in your home also, in this cases also we will use the process of filtration, students. Okay, what you will do while doing it, so you will how to make the paneer means a few drops of lemon juice are added to milk as it boils. So whenever the heat milk boils, you will add few drops of lemon juice, and this gives some solid paneer and a liquid. So we have to separate the solid paneer. So for that we will use the process of filtration with a strainer or a fine cloth, students. So these are the different processes of separating substances, students. So next thing is that, students, that is evaporation. So starting from the hand picking, if the substances or if the mixture having the very small particles, how we separate them, we have seen different processes, students. Suppose here if the particle sizes are very small, then how you will do it? Suppose if they take salt and add it to water and stir it with a spoon, after some time, do you observe the salt in the water? The answer is no. Which means there is no salt in the water? No, there is salt in the water, but it is not visible to us. So now if you want to separate the salt from the water, how you will do it? If you use any filter paper, you can't do it. Even though if you use cloth or filter paper, whatever it may be, you can't do it. Why? Because the salt is mixed up in the water. The salt cannot be separated. So in this process, in this problem, how you will do this? You will do this the help of evaporation method, students. So how evaporation method is done? So for that, what you have to do is you have to take a beaker and you have to put the salt water in that beaker and you have to start heating it. So you have to start heating it such that what happens, such that the water in it boils out. So we have to heat like that, the water in it will boils out, will come out of it, and we have to heat it until the whole water will goes out of it. How the water goes out of it, students? If you carefully observe, students, the water in the liquid form, water which is in the liquid form will converts into the water vapor, so that the water in the beaker will goes down, it becomes empty, and it will converts into the water vapor and goes out of it. So finally what is remaining in the beaker is the salt will remains. So in this way you can separate the salt, students. So the process of converting water into water vapor is called as what? Evaporation. What is, students? Evaporation. The process of conversion of water into its vapor is called evaporation. So by doing this process you can do this, students. Okay, so how you will get salt, students? Then you will say, sir, we will buy all those things in the stock in the markets, sir. But how markets are getting the salt? So basically salt is we are getting the salt from seawater. Seawater contains many salts in it. So how you will get the salt from the seawater is they will use the same evaporation method. So they will take the seawater and they will pour the seawater in the beds like this. So because of the heating effect of the sun, the water in these beds will evaporate, and the salt will remain in those beds, so that they will take the salt and they will purify it, and it becomes what? It will becomes, tell me, it will becomes the salt which we use, students. Okay, that is the thing. So use of more than one method of separation. So students, in some cases previously we have discussed all the separation methods. So in sometimes we will use more than one or two methods of separation to get perfect separation, students. Okay, why means, students, in doing one process we can't get complete result. Suppose that's why we will more than one method, students, more than one method to separate. So for example, if there is a sand plus salt mixed in water. How you will separate it? At first you will separate the sand and the salt water, maybe using any of the methods, hand picking or by decantation method. You can first you will do the sedimentation, after that you will do the decantation method. So after doing this decantation method, that sand is we can separate the sand, but there is still salt plus water. How you will separate the salt? Again what you will do is evaporation. By doing the evaporation, you will get salt in this thing, students. Okay, this kettle. But how to recover the water which is going out as water vapor? So for that you will use the process of condensation. What is condensation? Condensation is quite opposite to the evaporation, students. Water converting into water vapor is called evaporation, and water vapor converting into water is called condensation. Sir, is it true? Can we get the water out of the water vapor? Yes, students, obviously. How sir? Means if the water vapor is coming out of this mouth of this kettle, we have to take a plate, and you have to place some ice cubes on the plate, and you have to hold it with some angle. So that place here some beaker. What happens? The water vapor which is coming and strikes here, it is very cold because of the ice, so that the water vapor here will come down and converts into water. You may got some doubt and then ask, sir, this water is, I think this water is because of the ice, sir, but not with this. So if you have that doubt, you can do this process without ice also, but you have to place that plate at some height, so that the water vapor goes up, and they will strikes the plate, and because of the surrounding temperature it will cools down and water will comes out of it. So this process is called as condensation, students. Okay, that is the thing. So the process of conversion of water vapor into liquid form is called condensation. So here we have used different decantation method, evaporation method, condensation method, more than one method to get separate all the three substances. So next question is that, students, can we dissolve any amount of a substance? Can we dissolve any amount of substance? Suppose take a beaker and take a spoonful of salt and place it in the beaker or the glass and stir it. After some time you can't see the salt in it. Take one more spoon, again do the process. You can't see the salt in it. Take another. Like that the process goes on. So until some extent what happens, the salt will be mixed up, the salt will be dissolved in the water. But after some time, after having some amount of salt, if you further add more salt and if you try to stir it also, you will observe some of the salt particles in the glass, students. Okay, so which means that the salt is not dissolved. So here there is a word called saturated. What is this word meaning? So until the salt does not dissolve, before that point the salt dissolved, that the maximum extent or the maximum capacity to dissolve the salt in it, we call it as a saturated. So until how, or till the salt is dissolved in the water, we say that it is saturated. If the salt is not dissolved in the water, we say that it is unsaturated. Saturated means water, sorry, dissolved. If it is dissolved in water, we say that solution is saturated. If it is not dissolved in water, not dissolved. If it is not dissolved in water, we say it is unsaturated. Can you get the meaning, students? So that is the thing, students. Next thing. So if we're doing this thing, students, up to some extent, up to some amount of salt is dissolved in the water, but if you increase the amount of salt into the glass of water, it can't dissolve it. Okay, students, which means that water have some capacity. It can only dissolve some amount of salt only. If you want to dissolve more amount of salt into it, what we have to do? We have to heat it. By heating it, we can dissolve some more salt into the water. So after some time also, if you goes on increasing the salt, even though if you are heating, after some extent, even though if you are eating, the salt is not dissolved, it is not saturated, so it has reached its maximum limit. So we can't dissolve all amount of salt, all amount of substance into water. Some amount of salt only dissolved in it. It has some limit. That is the thing, students. Okay. And here is an activity. You can do it by your own, students. So finally, our chapter is completed, students. Hope you have understood, students. So if you have any doubts, students, please feel free to comment below. So our chapter is completed. So we will start our summary. Just we'll see the summary. What are the concepts we have learned just now? We will just see the summary, students. Okay, chapter name is separation of substances. We need in our day-to-day life to separate some substances. So first thing is, we daily separate the tea leaves before drinking the tea with a strainer, and we also separate the chilies from dahlia, like that. So finally we came to know that we need separation methods. We in our day-to-day life, we will separate some of the substances, some of the mixture. Suppose if you want to separate the mangoes from the guavas or the apples, we can easily separate them because they are having some considerable size. The process we called as hand picking. So here the substances to be separated may be having particles of different sizes, students, and the separating substance may be in any phase, that is in maybe solid or liquid or in the gas, students. So next thing is methods of separation. So what are the methods of separation? First thing is hand picking. So if you, in the case, we will separate the stones from the rice using the process of hand picking, students. Okay, and next thing is threshing. Suppose if you want to collect the grains from the stalks of the rice or wheat, how you will do it? We use the process of threshing. We will beat the stacks of the rice or wheat to a stone so that the grains will be separated. That is called threshing. So after that, the process we use is the winnowing process. So after the grains are collected, they have some dust and they have some husk and they have them stalks. So in this process, if you want to separate the grains from all those things, what we will do is we use the process of winnowing. In this process, heavier components are separated from the lighter components. If you want to use this process, we must have one component is heavier, another component is lighter, and allowing the blowing the wind. By doing this action like this, we can separate the heavier particles and the lighter components, friends. Okay. And next thing is sieving, students. We'll use the sieving to separate the floor and to separate the impurities in the floor. And in the construction places also, if we use the sievers and sieving process to purify the sand, students. Okay, to remove the stones from the sand. And here also, in the case of floor also, to remove the impurities from the floor, we use the sieve, students. Next thing is the sedimentation, decantation and filtration process, students. Suppose if you add the soil into a water, how you will separate them? So for that, first you will kept them for some time. So after that the soil will kept settled down. So we call this process called sedimentation. After doing the sedimentation, what is the process called decantation. So now we have to just take that glass without tilting it, and we have to separate the water which is on the top or the whatever it may be. So we call it as the decantation. And next thing is filtration. Even though after doing this decantation method there are some impurity in it, so why we do it sub filtration method. So previously we have used a strainer to filter tea leaves from tea. Like that we can use strainer for some particles. If the particle size is much smaller than the strainer, we may use cloth. If the particle size is much smaller than the cloth size holes, you may use filter paper. So by using these filters we can do the filtration process. So if the particle size is, the particles which you have to be separated is much smaller, they are dissolved in the water, how we will separate them? So we can use the process of evaporation. For example is, if there is the salt which is mixed in the water, how you will do it? So by heating the water, by converting the water into water vapor, you can get the salt in the beaker. So the process of conversion of water into its vapor is called evaporation, students. Okay, by using this process you can separate the salt and water. Next thing is that, students, why to use one or more than, and salt is prepared using this process only, students. So because of the sun, the water is evaporated and the salt remains in the water beds near the sea. Okay, students, like that. So in sometimes we will use one or more methods to separate substances. So suppose if there are sand, salt and water, how to remove them, how to separate them? For that, first we will use the process of sedimentation and decantation to separate sand from water. But there are salt plus water still remaining now. So for that, you salt plus water, you will use the evaporation method. So in this method you will get salt separated, but there is but we will lose the water. It converts into water vapor. So again we have to take back the water. So for that we will use the process of condensation. The process of conversion of water vapor into its liquid form is called condensation, students. How you will do it means by taking a plate and by taking some ice or anything, by touching the dry air to the plate, you will get the water. Why? Because the water vapor here is converting into the liquid form of water. So next thing is, can we dissolve any amount of substance? No, we can dissolve up to some amount only. If the salt or the any substance which is dissolving in the water, we say that it is saturated solution. If the salt or the water or the substance which is not dissolving in the water, we say that it is unsaturated students. Okay, so we can only dissolve some amount of substance. So there is some limit, students. So that is the thing. We can increase that limit by heating, students. So finally our chapter is completed. Our summary is also completed, students. If you like the session, please like and share our videos. Don't forget to subscribe Sreenath Academy YouTube channel. Also follow on Instagram and join our Telegram channels. Have a nice day. Keep smiling. Bye bye, students.